Boom. All right. Well, it feels good to be back. Welcome to another episode of the Bold Take. We apologize for a brief hiatus. It's been a couple of weeks before or since we recorded, but as you can probably tell, Solly is not with us tonight. Part of the reason why we haven't recorded in a little while is because he's been down in the islands enjoying the good life. And Dylan and I aren't the tech savvy individuals of this podcast. So, but it is good to be back, and it's especially good to be back because we are joined by one Nate Tice, and Nate is here this evening. I'm going to let him introduce himself and kind of give you his background and his bio. But Nate is here to talk ball, but primarily Trevor Lawrence. And hopefully walk some folks within the fan base, Dilla, back from the edge when it comes to Trevor. So we're looking forward to really getting into it. But Nate, I know you're with the Athletic, and you got your hand in a lot of different stuff, just football content, right? Football content on the internet.
Football bugsman.
That's it. That's kind of I love it. So tell people what exactly it is that you do, where they can find you, all that good stuff.
Just grew up around the game. Kind of my dad was a coach, two of my uncles are coaches, my dad and two of my uncles both played, and always knew I was going to get into football. Thought my career in the business would last a little longer, but I knew so I played at the University of Wisconsin. I was a backup to Russell Wilson. That's my claim to fame. And by backup, it was really more like third string signaler. But it was student coach. It was a good way to put it as well. But yeah, I went there right away. I knew I was going to be a coach, and I got lucky enough where Coach Chris, Paul Chris was my offense coordinator, ended up becoming the head coach at University of Pittsburgh. And I was a GA there for 2 years, grad assistant. GAs are a hot topic today with that little Salah Matt LaFleur story, but I don't know where all the outrage was when I was a GA. Also, now everyone wants to talk about, we run our GAs too hard. Come on. And then you have to see if you have to earn it. But after that, I was a scouting assistant and pro scout for the Atlanta Falcons for a couple of years. And then I got lucky enough to coach with the Raiders with my dad for a couple of years. I was an offensive quality control coach and assistant QB coach. And then we got Grudenized. Gruden came in, wiped us all out. I moved to Vegas, figured out what I was going to do with my life. And I worked in the AAF for a few months before that exploded in everybody's faces. Not that it wasn't unwarranted. That's a whole nother podcast. But I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I was like, hey, I got a lot of useless knowledge. And I saw on Twitter, I saw just people kind of like talking X's and O's. I knew a couple people through media. And kind of helped. I did it backwards. I had like 800 followers, but it was like most of them were blue checks. Like I had the flip of how people usually do it. So I think I was able to grow pretty quick, and I just like talking X's and O's. Being able to be scout and a coach, kind of could see it from a couple angles. And my dad always just encouraged me. My dad being Mike Tice, if I haven't said that yet, but who was a Jaguars coach. So I was a Jaguars fan for 3-4 years. I was we're mercenaries. So for 4 years, I was a Blackwater Jaguars fan, and then I became a Bears fan and went on from there. But yes, Duval, all that, Freebird playing in the fourth quarter. I've been there. I was there for some good wins too, with the Steelers at Pittsburgh, which was still, of any team I've been associated with, one of my favorite wins, period. The Patriots game that followed, maybe not so much. But I just bounced around, and now live in Vegas. I'm on Twitter, Nate_Tice. I'll tweet random games I'm watching, random thoughts. I also tweet a lot about wrestling. I'm a huge AEW fan, which is Jacksonville. That's Jacksonville associated. Perfect. Yes, I'm staying on topic. Huge AEW fan. And you can find, I have a Substack, the Silent Count. That's a little more long form pieces, stuff. I'll do more voiceovers. I do college football reports for the NFL draft for Bleacher Report. And then also I've started doing Twitch streams just because it's like, hey,
I saw that you had one today.
Yeah, games I don't really like, I'm just going to watch. It's like, hey, let's just hang out. And for about 2 or 3 hours, I'll just break down a game and kind of just see how I kind of watch a game. And it's rather than just post Twitter clips and get the dopamine through that, I just do a live 2.5 hour stream and and do that. So yeah, you can find me on there, twitch.tv/Nate_Tice. I got a little Forrest Gump avatar there. And that's about it. I think I covered it all. I was a quarterback. Loose. Play is a loose word, loose term there. But yeah, I would say I've been very lucky to been around the game my entire life, and it's been a lot of fun. Social media, I think, has really grown. Twitter, like football X's and O's, I think has really grown. I think I got in it right at the right time, where a lot of people were getting to Twitter and the technology and how people just are sharing their thoughts on the game and stuff. I think football fans are very hungry to not, there's 201 level stuff, but I think now people are like, okay, we got that. What's 301? What's 401? And I think it's what people realize, that there's a market for it, and there's people that want to learn about the game. And I think it's been a lot of fun just talking with them about it.
That's cool. Yeah. It's funny. Myself, Alfie Crow, who does the not Bleacher Report, but the SB Nation blog for Big Cat Country.
Yep.
And a buddy of ours who used to play for the Jags kind of back in the original days, the glory days, Jeff Kopp. We hosted, prior to doing any of these podcasts or anything, we hosted a weekly Jaguars radio show, on over the air radio. And that's what Copper was. He was passionate about breaking stuff down on at a higher level, right? And kind of educating. And so we were a little bit ahead of our time. Like, he would tweet out some still shots that he took or some videos and be like, and we'll be talking on air like, hey, go to our Twitter account. You can see what we're talking about. But I remember the producers and the people for that particular radio station were like, guys, the average listener is not going to like this, but that's the feedback we got
says, but everyone keeps saying that. They're like, hey, the average listener is not going to like that. I just keep doing what I'm doing, and it just seems, hey, more and more people seem to be liking it. So it's like, it's one of those. I actually just saw Mel Brooks quote about, like, you take notes and then you just say agree with them, and then you throw them out and ignore it. I've kind of done that a little bit. I've gotten notes before where people are like, hey, they're not going to know that what that term means. I'm like, well, I'm going to teach them, and now they know it. People want to learn, like they do. I think it's you got to challenge people, challenge fans, challenge anybody about any topic, really. And people surprise you how much they learn and how much they want to learn. And if it's a topic they want to know about, people love football and they want to sound 1% smarter than their buddy at the bar. Like, it's a good combination. So people are going to listen, even if they take one thing away. I think it just helps. And then it's like, I don't know, then questions to coaches become better. Questions to scouts, like GMs and whatever, we critique them how they should be critiqued. That's kind of what I really want to see. And I think I see more of it now, because now I don't know, it just, the old way, it was just like, oh, it's just narratives and you go from there. But it's like, no, it's actually like, break this down. Like, there's more, it's more process driven than I think people realize. And I think it's been fun, because I can, even the 3 years I've been really #online, it's been like, I can even see growth with it, and just how people talk about the game. And because even before, sometimes, and this is, I'm not, like, I sound like I'm touting myself a little bit, but it's like I'm touting other people as well, like Matt Bones of the world, Ted Nguyen. Like, there's a whole bunch of guys out there, even guys like that were started as reporters or more sports media driven, are now learning about the game. Chuck McDonald, Stephen Ruiz, PFF Seth Galina, PFF Seth, he's gonna kill me. Deontay Lee, all those guys, like, they were really trying to learn the game and teach people. And because I think before, the messengers were sometimes bad. They would just go, that's called this. And it's like, well, that's one way to call it. And there's 15 other ways you can call it. And that's what I kind of realized, was that everyone thought there's just one answer to everything. It's like, no, football is amazing. There's dozens of answers.
Super nuanced. It was just forever oversimplified. And then I think the people that controlled media, just, it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like, people don't want to, they're dumb. They just, they want sound bites, quick sound bites, and that's it. And in reality, we, like, those old heads in media that believe that they're in the midst of, we're in the information age, right? People can go on their phone and find an answer to something like that. And so to think that traditional media or, new age media wasn't gonna try and keep up with that, or wasn't gonna, be symbiotic with that, is just silly to me. So
Yeah. It's not going away either. That's the
Right.
thing. It's like, it's only going to compound, like, and just get faster and more nuanced, more information is going to be out there. And don't be afraid of technology. It's something I used to always say to coaches.
And I think that's like with that roster of dudes that you just named, I think what's really cool about that group, I'm familiar with probably about 80% of them. With that group, when I go look at their stuff, I'm not going to do opinion Twitter, like where we sit there and shoot opinions back and forth. I'm going there because you guys know what you're talking about. I mean, I feel like I understand the game enough to have a conversation. Cap and I sit stacked in the stadium, so we shoot back and forth all game long. But that group and you're a part of it. You guys sit there and you guys teach, and that's really cool. It's not anything where I'm going to sit there and be like, no, you're wrong. I'm going to sit there and be like, holy crap, like these guys see stuff so differently. And it's like such a dump of information. And like you said earlier, when it's something you want to learn about, on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I always go to your timeline because I know you're pro Trevor Lawrence, and you weekly walk me back off the plank. And and there's not many people who I'm going, out of my way to see. But like you said, you guys are teaching. You guys want people to learn. And I think it's a different subsect of Twitter.
Yeah.
So
fully. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Really, I do.
Yeah.
Like it's and sometimes it can seem like where I'm like, hey, doubling down on my takes as we say it, but a lot of it's like, hey, you got to look at process with a lot of this stuff, and that it's hard. It's really hard. Like, I mean, shoot, I even went on our show on Sunday. I with Robert Mays, the Athletic Football Show. Check it out. We went on with Robert Mays, and I went in on the Chargers, and I went all in on it. I mean, just like I'm lambasted their offense, and it's like and then I had to take a step back this week and kind of go, okay, that was a little too harsh. Kind of like, but I was just getting frustrated. But because even for me, I can get like that, where it's just like, oh, and then you look at the stats, and they're like a top 5 offense by every metric, and the quarterback's doing well, but it's just like, it's not how I pictured it. And so it's like, yeah, even me, I can get hot. I don't know, hot takey, but like get heated about something, and then I have to go like, hey, it's process. But no, I appreciate that. And that's what I hope I can do sometimes, because it's sometimes there's a lot of knee-jerk reactions out there, and it's pretty hilarious to watch them unfold, because apparently like guys like Tua is a top 5 quarterback now. But like,
of course, well, only when he plays the Jaguars. Only when he plays the Jaguars. Exactly. So all right, well, before we get into dissecting Joe Cullen's defense, which is obviously why you're here. Now, but before we get into Trevor, I do want to ask you, because just kind of the direction this conversation's initially taken. How has it been? Or I guess first of all, on Monday Night Football, are you watching the Manning cast? And is that kind of football porn for you in a way? Like, I mean, just watching Peyton, because. Go ahead.
It is. It's like, it is in some ways. And in some ways, I'm like, hey, they're gonna get me out of a freaking job if they keep doing this. But some of it too, though, is what I've realized. It's been great. I love the Manning cast, because when they try to teach stuff, it's so cool. But also, it's a reminder, even for me, there's a million ways to do this. There's a dozen ways to look at stuff, because there's stuff I don't agree with how they look at it. Peyton has a very old school way of looking at certain rules of concepts, and like match coverages, for one, like, and how some modern pressures didn't come until he was with Denver, late Denver, like when he was falling apart, Denver. And it's kind of funny, like there's a couple times he'll name some stuff and talk stuff, and I'm like, 5 years ago, Peyton, maybe, like, and I would never say that, like, to his face or anything. I'm saying it on this podcast, but so might as well be doing it.
Yeah.
But it's like with Peyton, it's that's what's awesome. It's like, I see a lot of stuff. I've learned a couple things from him, like, and sometimes they code things, and that's the funniest part, is when you can tell they want to say something, but they say about the 70% truth of it, or they try to dumb it down. So that's been it's fun to hear how they just view certain things, or how they term it, like, and how they use their own little slang for certain things. That's really what I've learned coaching is you can say something 5 different ways in teaching. You just have to find the one that clicks for everyone's brain.
Right.
And like some stuff, like they say, it's like, I wouldn't say it that way, but like it works for Peyton, of course, and Eli, but sometimes it's like, oh, I would have said it like this. But sometimes I hear what they say, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a good way to put it. Like, that's a really good way to teach it. And that's really what I listen to it for. But it is awesome. I hate when they actually have guests on. I just want those two to just hang out.
I'm with you. Like I think they, in some ways,
other than Phil Mickelson, other than that was hilarious.
There's been a handful of them that have been good, but it's just like, I watch it and I'm watching it for a very distinct reason. Like you said, it's almost like you're hanging out with them watching the game. I don't really need to hang out with Condoleezza Rice watching the game. Like that's just she's not on the top 10 list of people who are, and that's not political in any way, shape, or form. No. That's just, I want to hear.
I agree. I know she was going to be the Browns head coach, but
yeah. And she probably knows way more than I do, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, yeah, I don't know. I think it's, and so obviously it's a new twist on things, right? It's a completely non-traditional viewing experience, and especially the NFL, especially, right? Football in general, but the NFL is so regimented in the way their broadcasts have gone for so long. So
even how announcers talk about it, like that's what it's it's a type, it's like WWE with a wrestler. It's like Vince McMahon likes this type, but that's like the powers that be in sports broadcasting, like this type. And they want you to talk about this. They want to talk about this team wanted it more. They want to talk about this team ran the ball more. And it's like, now we're starting to get a little breath of fresh air, but with Romo and the Mannings and kind of getting those guys talking about it in a different way and pointing out different aspects of the game. It's hard to keep up with the game. Like there's defensive stuff that I'm going to have to look into after this year to learn like some of the rules stuff. And it's like, man, some of these guys are doing announcing and it's just like, I know you're not watching it. Like, I know you're not keeping up with exactly what that term is or exactly what's going on there, Troy Aikman. But it's but it's like, that's what's awesome about the game. It's just constantly evolving. And I agree with you though, but I just want to hang out with Peyton as he gets drunker on the broadcast and starts like really ripping into quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah.
That's the best part, is when he starts getting a little buzz. And
when he starts going like this too. And it's just like,
Oh, he had one under his breath the other day. He was like, oh, gotta love a crosser versus zone. And I was like, oh, Peyton. He was, like he's just starting to be sarcastic. And I was like, oh, I love this.
And, I mean, that's what, so that, I mean, to bring the conversation kind of full circle, the niche that you're in right now, right? And the niche that on a much lesser scale that we were trying to, I guess, pioneer 6 years ago with the radio show we had, it's only going to get bigger. And the popularity of the Manning cast isn't just because it's Peyton and Eli and they do great commercials, right? It's the people that are watching you, that are tuning into you, and all the people that you mentioned, the Bowens and the Robert Mays and the Danny Kellys and all of those guys that obviously are building, careers off of this type of lane. It's only a matter of time before it comes more mainstream. So, hopefully you're in a good position to take it, to get really rich, dude. Hopefully.
Fingers crossed. It's funny too. It's a little easier. Also, my wife listens to Peyton Manning on the Manning cast. And she's like, wow, that was really intelligent. I was like, I just talked about that last week on the podcast. It's just like, but when it comes from Peyton Manning's mouth, it's like, oh yeah, this is gold. Like, but that's what I'm liking it though. Cause now, like you said, it's more people are willing to go like, hey, this is fun to like learn about the game. Like,
right.
And I hope it just populates in all sports. I think Zach Lowe, for what he's done with the NBA coverage, that really is a door breaker. I think he really busts down the door for that type of way of looking at the game. So that's that's really what a guy I would love to emulate. Like I just like how he is able to kind of be funny, but also just talk about the game in a way where it's like, hey, this is why this happened. Hey, check out this like seventh man that's doing this. Like, isn't that cool? Look at him setting picks. Like, just like those. It's like, oh wow. Even for me, I'm like, that's awesome. Like I love, and so I think there's more of that. I'm hoping with the NFL, and I'm starting to see it, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think it's coming, man. Like you kind of very quickly glossed over what I think is going to always drive all of it, right? I mean, other than the ease of access to information across the board in our daily lives, the other element of it is when you love something and you're super passionate about it, you're not going to want to know less about it. right?
Right.
So those two things go hand in hand, and it's only going to get crazier.
And there's a lot of people that love football.
Yeah, especially yes, exactly. So all right, well, let's for those of the people who are tuning in to only hear about Trevor Lawrence, they're going to get a solid 15 minutes of us nerding out a little bit.
Yeah.
But
the future of sports media.
Yeah, enthralling conversation here on the Bold Take. No, I mean, I think it's good. I think most of, in all seriousness, I think most of the people who are going to listen to this will agree and appreciate that conversation. But I reached, so full disclosure on our end, we talked about reaching out to you probably a month and a half, 2 months ago. And then Trevor had that run of 2 or 3 games where I think everybody was excited, right?
Yeah.
And then, was it Seattle or maybe the game before came?
Seattle seemed like when a lot of wind came out of the sails a little bit.
Yeah. So then it was like, all right, well, let me go to Nate's timeline. Oh yeah, he's still in on Trevor. Okay. Then I'm watching. I'm like, that makes sense. I agree with that. Okay. Yeah. I'm like, so anyway, a couple weeks ago, I reached out and said, you know what, we gotta get you on. So
yeah.
Tell us. Let's start with this. I know Dilla's got a bunch of good questions for you as well in regards to Trevor, but give us the background, like on how you viewed him over the past couple of years leading up to right now. Like maybe take us there first.
I remember his first start with Clemson when they kind of ran the other quarterback out of there. Oh, he's hurt. And I was like, okay, that's very telling. This is a good team and they cannot wait to get this guy on the field. That's always something notable. Like I know he was a top, whatever recruit all time, top 10 recruit of all time. And it was, I was a hater to begin with. I'm not going to lie. And I remember I'm watching the game. I just moved. It was my first year in Las Vegas. I'm watching the game and I was like, oh, I got to watch this Clemson. My wife, or it was my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife. She was like, oh, is this like, why are you watching Clemson? I was like, oh, I got to watch this quarterback real quick. Everyone's saying that he's next Peyton Manning, like whatever. And I'm kind of doing this motion and kind of like whatever. And he whips a freaking out route, and I've been a fan ever since. he threw that first ball, and I was a fan ever since. But honestly, the generational tag with him as a prospect, it was legitimate. And watching this offseason, I wanted to be very fair. I got with Bleacher Report in January to start covering the 2021 draft. And watching all these quarterbacks, and I watched I think I started with Zach Wilson, because I was like, all right, I want to see what all the hype's about. And I liked him. I was not as high as him as other people were. And I'm looking okay there. But but then I watched Trevor, and it was against Wake Forest. And it was the process. And I'll keep kind of referring to his word, especially with Trevor Lawrence, is his process was outstanding. It wasn't just the gifts. Of course, he's tall, 6'6", the hair. He moves very, very well for his size. He's quick twitch, which is not what you see with a tall guy. I'm a tall, long-legged guy myself. I'm an oozer. Most tall guys ooze. Like they kind of really watch Herbert. Oh, not Herbert. Burrow. Watch Burrow move in the pocket, and then when he's about 6'4", and watch Trevor move in the pocket, or Justin Herbert. Those two are freaks of nature. But it's watching Burrow move in the pocket. It's very lungy. It's very like back and forth. And it works for him because he's athletic and big, but it's like, that's what a big guy usually looks like when they move in the pocket. Trevor was so tight with his pocket movements and so tight with his movements. And then when he'd scramble, he's pulling away from guys like legit competition, not just the Wake Forests of the world, but the Bamas and the Ohio States of the world. He's pulling away from these top tier guys. And I was like, okay, there's something to this guy. And there's something with his process pre-snap. That's when I was like, okay, I'm not as worried about the Clemson scheme that other people were, because he put it all on his shoulders, especially his junior years last year. He handled everything, and he was pointing, he adjusted, he's talking to the back. And there's times when you can see a quarterback talking to the back and it's like, I should be doing this. I think I'm telling you the right thing. And with him, it was all confidence. It was like, he was just fully in control. And that's when I was like, I'm all in on this guy. He warranted the generational tab. And honestly, it's him and Andrew Luck are the two best quarterbacks I've watched in that kind of light. I'd say since, about 2011 ish. That's really when I've kind of had a new scouting perspective of these guys, he would easily been the highest graded guy, truly. And all those things was it's there's something with accuracy too with quarterbacks and just the three levels. The only thing I think my only detriment I had on Lawrence was his deep ball isn't elite. I said it was more like good to very good, which is still like you're still going to take. But it was when it was with accuracy, and this is going to just sound more anecdotal, but it's just like they don't miss on any throw. It's like, hey, they're falling over and the ball still is hitting the guy in the freaking face. They are in warm-ups, and like you throw a ball with your buddy, you don't know your buddy's like just jogging, and you don't know how fast he's jogging, and so you like throw it short, and you're like, oh, I thought, or you throw it deep, you're like, oh, I thought you were gonna run for it. Every time, if you watch Trevor Lawrence warm up, every ball's right on the money, and it's watch his pro day. He's throwing his little fat long snapper center that was there to just snap balls, and he's warming up with him. And every ball's on the money. Didn't matter how the guy moved or anything. And the guy just caught everything. And it was just like, that's rare. It really is. And that's actually why I liked Fields as well. He was kind of the same way. But it's as far as accuracy wise, but it was just that complete package. And from what I heard from him, I honestly was like, unless this guy's a complete asshole, it's like this, you got to tap this guy. Like, it's just like, he is just, don't even think about it. And I even said it with Robert. We went over the quarterbacks. Trevor was the shortest segment we did because I just go, hey, that guy that's been labeled as a generational guy since like sophomore year of high school? Yeah, that's it. And we moved on from there. But it's I'm a huge fan of his, and obviously, and that's why you guys have me on too. But there's been really nothing so far I've seen this season that's really dissuaded me from that. Even the games that don't seem as pretty, and I get it. You want the Justin Herbert where it's like, holy shit, this guy's making these hero throws every game. They're putting up 30 points like last year as a rookie. But we forget that a lot of these quarterbacks that go high are going to really, really bad teams. And that's what the Jaguars are at this in 2021. They're breaking
news here on the Bold Take Pod.
I don't know if anyone needs to know that. Like, Zach Wilson went to the Jets, who are a very, very bad team. Just like Zach Wilson, that's kind of the teams that you go to. And playing quarterback is really, really hard. But there is a lot of signs that he gets it. Like it's just going to take some time once he just gets something around him that's just not a train wreck.
Yeah, right. So, Dylan, before we get into I did want to ask before we get into current Trevor, since you kind of gave a little bit of the background on your analysis of him as a prospect coming out, pretty early on, it might have been week 1 because we were there, unfortunately, in Houston. We thought we were going. It's against
that flag.
Listen, we go to a couple away games every year. We plan big trips with Bold City Brigade, our group.
That's awesome.
People are always wanting to go to Houston because it's a division. And I'm like, first of all, I've been to Houston, and no offense to anybody who listens to this. And Nate, if you're a big fan of the city of Houston, I apologize ahead of time.
It's all right.
But it's nothing special. So it's not really a place that I want to go. And when they had Deshaun and DeAndre and JJ.
Arian Foster.
Yeah. And then even before that, Nate, back when your dad was here, when we had good teams, they had bad teams, they'd beat us. So I was never in a hurry to plan an official trip, even when it was Matt Schaub, And so anyway, we didn't do it, but this year people were like, Cap, we got to go to Houston. It's Trevor's first game. And I'm like, that's a compelling argument. Let's do it. We'll finally do an official trip to Houston. And I think we all built up in our head, especially as it got closer with Deshaun not playing, that we were going to see a W. Now, around that time, I said to Dilla after that game, and maybe after week 2, I said, going back, I've never been a fan of Tony Elliott's offense. And now let me take a step back. It is what it is for college. Yeah. If I was a generational quarterback prospect, I wouldn't want to go to that school.
Nope. Notice how they get no offensive linemen.
Yeah. I made the comment
for a reason.
So Dilla's a huge Bama fan, right? Nope. And to me, Saban, he realized several years back, hey, I've got to get these recruits to get these guys ready for the NFL, which is what he's recruiting on, right? All of those things. I've got to bring in pro level and treat this more like a pro style offense, a pro style program. And so I just said to Dylan, I'm like, that's the last place I would go if I were Trevor Lawrence, to play for Tony Elliott and Dabo. And so I had this contention that part of his struggles were based off the fact that when you juxtapose him with Joe Burrow got a doctorate that last year with Joe Brady, where they just lived in the facility together, and it was ball 24/7. I think Trevor got a GED his last year or two with Tony Elliott and the offense they were running. Is before we get into breaking down specifics of how his rookie season's going, am I completely off base with that? Do you think there's some truth to that has set him back a little bit?
It was at first when I was watching him in camp or in preseason. I think they played the Saints, right? And that was a game I really studied with him because I was curious. I was like, all right, are they putting anything on him pre-snap? Are they making it easy on him? Which concepts are they running? And it was, they played the Saints and they played the Cowboys. That's right.
Yep.
And I watched those two games and I was like, they threw everything on him right away. And I was like, that's not a mistake. This is Bevel and Schottenheimer. It's like, whatever you want to say about Bevel and Schottenheimer, they at least run an NFL offense. Like, this is a real offense. Like, I'd recognize every concept. When I just watched this Falcons game, it's like nothing was too crazy where I was like, what are they doing? It's almost too NFL-y. It's like you want them to modernize it a little bit with some things, but it's like, but it's watching it, they threw everything at him in camp and he handled it. And it was like, okay, so like you said, he got the GED. It's almost like he went to a valedictorian. He's the valedictorian of a school that only puts out one guy into college every year. They have a 1% graduation rate.
Yeah.
And he was a valedictorian of that 1% graduation rate at that high school. Like, I think that's the best way I could put it. It was that he did as much as that offense could allow him to do at Clemson. And I completely agree with you. It's funny. I'm going to be biased, of course, but Paul Chris is still, even if this year people won't believe it, is still like one of the smartest human beings I've ever met in football. And how he teaches football and everything, like he's one of the best teachers to quarterbacks, because sometimes it's less is more. And sometimes it's just, there's no fat to his teaching. Like, it's not just saying shit to say shit. A lot of quarterback gurus want to justify their title and say a lot of words and do 50 drills. And it's like, oh my God, like, yeah, don't get me started on private QB coaches, but it's, it's not the systems, the offenses in college that you would think are the best to groom a QB. It's like Stanford, really Mike Riley, when he was coaching, like, he was actually pretty good teacher of quarterbacks. It was just at Oregon State, so no one paid attention. Paul Chris, of course, I'm going to be biased, but it's like schools that you like really wouldn't think are the ones that get kind of that advanced, where they actually have to do stuff, protections, make a kill, not run any RPOs, like actually run progress. This is a sidebar. This is why I'm high on Desmond Ridder, by the way, because he actually has to do this at Cincinnati. So it's like, that was when I was watching Trevor at Clemson, I was like, okay, I think he's going to be better than then we realized, even with this limitation of offense. And then when I watched him in camp, I was like, he's fine. Everyone's anointing Mac Jones as this genius savant, and he's a very smart quarterback, and he does a lot of good things. Trevor's doing all the pre-snap stuff that Mac Jones is doing. It's just not as blatant. It's just not as blatant, like, because the Mac Jones, the Patriots, Josh McDaniels offense, he's pointing, they make the large kills, and it's every single play. So of course we're going like, oh, he's doing it every play. The Jaguars, he doesn't have to, Trevor Lawrence doesn't have to do that every play. It's just how the offense is, which actually I kind of prefer. It's just that when he has to do it, he can do it. And it's like, he's doing protections right away. The Cincinnati Bengals game, especially, if you watch that one, he's that Thursday night game, he was handling everything with them. And it was like, this is a rookie doing it. And he has the athletic traits, but he also has those mental traits. And so, yeah, I don't know if the GED's analogy is right, but it's kind of true. It's like, he made the most of his poor education. It was like he went to Marshall and he got a 4.4 GPA.
This and kind of in contrast to Nate said it, they weren't running the RPO. If you look at Tua, that's where all of his success came from in Alabama.
Yes.
It's all off the RPO. It's all,
yep.
Are you going to sell out and stop Najee Harris? Because if you are, I'm going to slip it to Judy behind you. So,
yep.
damned if you do, damned if you don't, getting that GED. They're just kind of where you go. Are they going to play to your strengths?
That was the funny part with the Mac Jones dialogue was everyone was like, oh, he's the most pro ready. And it's like, I was laughing because I was like, that's actually one of the most college offense right now. Because
under Sarkisian, it was very.
But why you watch, it was the same with Mac Jones. It was just his process on every snap was perfect. I mean, it honestly was like his stuff is like teaching tape. And that's why I said, I was like watching him with like you watch like a Drew Brees running an offense, but also like watching Mac Jones at Bama, it's like you always knew the ball was going to the right spot. Even if it was an incomplete or got batted down, he missed the throw or the guy's covered, the ball was going to where Sarkisian had circled. Right. What was saying that is number one. If number one's open, this is two. Like Mac Jones was always getting to that. But the thing was, it really was a 1-2, like a real, one and done read offense. It just didn't maybe seem like that to the naked eye.
It's crazy, like listening to you say that, because I watched it all. I mean, as a fan, I didn't sit there and study it all, but when you say Mac was so good in his process pre-snap, and then he's so good in the pocket at stepping up and avoiding pressure, it makes so much sense that he was getting it to where it was supposed to be, because he knew exactly what was going to happen pre-snap. He avoided the defender that beat the offensive lineman on the rare occasion, and the ball's where it's supposed to be. So that's pretty crazy. Like, just again, here we are talking about earlier, how you sit there and we listen and learn, and it just kind of the light bulb goes off. So kind of wild to see.
Oh, cool.
I'm glad. Yeah. Mac Jones, a Jacksonville boy. So we're all quite conflicted.
Bulls, right?
Because, Bulls High School.
That's where I would have gone if my dad got fired my junior year from Minnesota, and I stayed in Minnesota because I was getting recruited, and we thought about moving down to Jacksonville, and I would have ended up at Bulls.
Play with Corky.
That's a hell of a program. But I remember when Mac came out, there's guys when they come out, there's a big buzz about them, and there was like none about him. I mean, I didn't even know that a quarterback from Jacksonville ended up at Alabama. And I mean, the only reason Dilla did is because he's a Bama fan. But
they flipped him from Kentucky late. He ran like the wing T. So it's kind of wild.
Yeah, I know. And even watching him, like I went in, I was like, I'll probably end up with like a second round grade on this guy. He probably does a lot of nice things, and he was the guy that. I mean, I understood where all of a sudden everyone wants to be kind of a hipster and go like, this is my QB guy. Like, this is my QB that I think is gonna be the best. And so at first I thought that's kind of what was going on. Like coaches were trying to sound too smart. And I watched him and I was like, I get it. Like he is a machine, like as far as process and everything. And he's super accurate. Like I compared him to Chad Pennington, and I still think that holds true. I really do. I think Pennington was a little bit better athlete and bigger. But it's like, honestly, it's that type of player. And that's like a guy like that can play in the league for a long time. But it was a guy that I liked him more than I thought I was in the process. And I had to say it's to Robert, because I feel like some people are anointing him as like Tom Brady Jr. already. And it's like, okay. We got 10-year careers with these guys. Like the other guys are going to go like this. And then Mac Jones might be here and kind of go up a little bit. I'm giving visuals on a podcast. This is always great. But it's like no,
we run video. You're good. We run video.
Okay. So, those other guys ascend like that. And that's why, it's the upside of all these guys. But it's like, this is what we kind of expected out of Mac. Like he's going to be a freaking computer, like a football robot back there. And he's super competitive, but it's like, but what's the next step? What happens when the offensive line isn't as good as it is right now, and yada, yada, yada. But he's going to have a nice career.
It's kind of funny that we're talking about Mac right now, because my first question for you was like, compared to the other rookie quarterbacks, or say rookies for the last 4 and 5 years, where does Trevor compare pre-snap or in that process?
Pre-snap, he's top 2 to me. Herbert was good post-snap and would always find the right thing, but they haven't asked him to do a lot of the pre-snap stuff, but I think he can handle it. But Lawrence and Mac Jones are 1A, 1B. I mean, they are the 2 best I've seen, at least, probably in the last 4 or 5 years. And I mean, probably since Luck, really. Winston was pretty good. Jameis was pretty good pre-snap, just because Jimbo put a lot on them on QBs with that stuff. It was just Jameis is Jameis, hold on to your hat post snap. Like Jameis is actually kind of how I was as a quarterback. I mean, I'm not comparing myself to Jameis Winston. I'm just saying mentally, Jameis is a guy that if it plays out how he thinks post snap, he's great. But if you change up the picture on him, he has some struggles. He's gotten a little better actually under Peyton before he got hurt. But it's like, that was why Lawrence and Mac Jones are great. It's like they can see this picture pre-snap. They can see those little tells some of these guys just got a feel for who's blitzing and stuff like that. There's tells you can see with the safety and everything, but some of these guys just have a feel for it. Like they glance and are like, that nickel looks really weird. And then shoot, and they find the blitz. I'm like, man, how do you see that? Like, the safety wasn't capping them. Like, but some of these guys just have that feel for it. So Trevor and Mac Jones are two of the best I've seen, really.
So when you say an explain process and like you're seeing it and the indicators, when Tony Romo sits there and explains it, do you think like, is that how they're processing it too? Obviously on a deeper level, but is it like that?
It's a little bit. Yep. It's you're looking for each defense has a tell, and each coverage has a tell. It's just that you have to find it. Some bad defenses, it's just like, it's easy. It's like, oh my God, that safety kicks over there. We're good. This is cover 3. This D end is in a wide 9. Okay, they're bringing a pressure from the field. Like you just have to find what that clue is. The good defenses are the ones that bait you, that go, hey, look at the clue. Look at the clue, right. And then they bring something completely different. That's what the good defenses do. Mike Zimmer, especially like that. I always refer to Zimmer on our podcast because it's just like, he knows how to mess with QBs. He just does. He knows how to mess with your rules. He got Justin Herbert in the Chargers O-line several times, and it was pretty actually astounding. But it's but like how Romo will kind of explain some stuff and he'll circle it. He'll kind of just show where he ends up on the stuff, but he shows you step 3, I think, of like his pre-snap process.
Okay,
but
I got you.
Yeah, and a lot of things is patterns. Like you group things into buckets, and it's like you look at patterns of formations and patterns of coverages, and if they're in this front, they are, or if the defensive line is aligned like this, that means this coverage is coming. I just watched the Colts Bucks game today, Colts offense versus Bucks defense, and it's like, and it got to this point where anytime the Bucks defense was matching with their base personnel 3-4 against the Colts 3 wide receivers, they ran one coverage. But that's the thing, is that those are the tells that you get to. You see, okay, they're in this personnel package, they're doing this. They're in this formation, they do this. And you start kind of like trimming out the fat and kind of narrowing it down. That's when you kind of start seeing what's the funky stuff. Because you're like, I haven't seen that before. Like, and that's when usually you see me getting excited on Twitter is when you see stuff like that.
Sweet. Nice. So early on with Trevor, I guess maybe give us your assessment of how he started the season. And then kind of where he is now. And you, obviously you've watched all the games, you've watched all his tape. What are you seeing? Are you seeing any progress? Are you seeing areas where the team could be helping him more? I guess let's start with progress, areas of progress. Let's start with that.
I would say the progress has come in of him. There's an old coaching adage, football or quarterback adage, is you want to end each drive with a kick. That means punt, field goal, or extra point. And so no turnovers, none of that. And I think that kind of kicked into him after a couple of weeks, because there's a lot of times where he was too aggressive. And a couple of guys got on him. I think people were tweeting about it, and I was just kind of like, hey, actually, that's a good thing. You want the quarterback to be too aggressive to start. It's easier to rein in the horse than try and teach a coward like to be aggressive. It really is. It's very hard to get that instilled into a guy. So that's why even the negative that I was seeing was really, silver lining was that it's actually a positive. So the progress I've seen, the number one progress, is that he's finding the checkdowns. And hey, it's 3rd and 14. I don't need to whip this thing in there and try to be a hero. All right, I'm just going to check it down. Maybe he breaks the tackle and gets the first down, but running with a punt. All right, we get better field position. I think that's what a lot of guys in college don't realize at the NFL. Once they get to the NFL, is teams are really good, and you're not going to score a touchdown every time you touch the ball. You're not full of 5 stars. 4 of your offensive linemen might be out. Your defense might be awful this game, so you got to help them out in that way. It's more of a team. It's a situational battle more than every single snap can be that way. And so I think that's what. But it was like quick that he got off of that. I would say by week 3, the Cardinals game. Yeah, I got the schedule up. So yeah, the Cardinals game, it was when I kind of was like, okay, all right, he already broke that. They already broke in the horse. Okay, so now what? Like, what am I going to get on him now? Okay, he's got to improve his pre-snap ability. And then week 4 against the Bengals, it was like, okay, I saw that. Okay, well, he's already handling all the pre-snap stuff. All right. So now what? All right, what am I? So it's like the negatives that or weaknesses that he had maybe early on, he's already addressed. And it's like, oh God. And I've been waiting to see more results. I think we all have. But then it's his teammates have gotten worse. So I think that's where you're seeing the limitations come up. Like we're not seeing that next, that huge leap that maybe we were expecting, especially after a bye week or something. That the game in London was like, okay, maybe there's something here. Then you thought after the bye week they would hit the ground running and keep going. Other stuff happened, I understand, but but it's just I think the guys around them they're not helping. I mean, they aren't. The O line's not bad. Like they actually do an okay job, and it's a sound like the scheme is sound. Like there's nothing where I'm like, what? Yeah, it's not as bad as you would think. Like that's like they don't help themselves a lot, like where they align some guys, like having Tavon Austin on a backline dig to catch a touchdown. You don't really want the 5'8" guy running that.
Yeah.
Like little tweaks like that, but the concepts of themselves aren't terrible.
Gotcha.
But that's the problem is that with the talent level they have, you can't just run standard concepts. You got to get creative. We got to get these guys open somehow.
Right. And
like,
I think that's a lot of the critique, especially the last 3 weeks, right?
Yes.
Maybe 4 or 5 weeks, but go with me here. The largest critique that I think a lot of people that are going back and watching the game, even just on a fan level, just TV broadcast, not even all 22, just going back and looking at it, is that, and Prisco has been harping on this. Pete Prisco has been harping on this quite a bit. He's still on the local
friend of the pod.
Yeah, friend of the pod. He's on Mondays. Him and Tony Baselli do a show for the state radio network for the Jaguars, and so Prisco that was great on it because he'll be critical. And he's saying a lot of the same things that fans are asking is, hey, yeah, it's great that you have a structurally sound offense, but you don't have the talent to run it. So we're not, at least not enough to my liking. You're not seeing enough pre-snaps, or enough, motion, enough stack, enough, just things to try and get guys open, to scheme them open. It seems like there's still, correct me if I'm wrong, especially what you saw the last couple of weeks, they're still running guys out there with pretty traditional routes that as if you had the Cowboys wide receivers or the Bucks wide receivers, right? I mean,
a little bit. Yeah. And that's what it is. There's no tempo. There's no kind of just a way to manufacture the cheapies. Like the best, you have to to raise the bar. That's why having a QB that can run, this can do it. And actually the one way they have done is run a little more zone read with Lawrence. And he's remarkable in a way too, is he doesn't get hit hard. Like that's another positive of Trevor Lawrence. Like, yeah, knock on wood. But the ones that he does, it's like when he's trying to make a play and then 2 guys fall into him and stuff. But even on zone reads and stuff, he knows how to get down and everything. It's like just another thing he does well, of course. But it's those are the only way they can get cheap yards right now. It's even in the ways they run nakeds and stuff. It's like they're the standard ways to run nakeds. It's like the bootlegs. It's the standard way to get to them. And that's where that's my main critique, is that it's an NFL offense. I joked about it before, but for better or for worse. It's like, like I said, I recognize every concept. That's not always the good thing. You want, I should sometimes hesitate and go, what are they getting to here? Oh, okay. Find a different way to run curl flat. Find a different way, Hank, if some people call it, find a different way to run 4 verts. Like he had a great throw where he hits the bender that didn't bend on a 4 verts concept, but it's on those, it's a 4 verts 2x2. You got to dress it up. That's a defense's standard rules. It's against 2x2 4 verts. You got to either get into a different personnel grouping where it's 3 tight ends, or you had the back on a motion running up the seam. They tried to do that, and Carlos Hyde ran into a linebacker, and that convoluted that. It's just like every time they do try to do these tweaks, it's like they don't execute them because the guy, and that might get into teaching. That could be a whole nother thing because the receivers are short on every route. They run wrong routes all the time. They are just, they can't separate themselves, but they also make mistakes. And it's like that. It's like, you're already not good enough. You can't be watch a Shanahan offense, and Shanahan, we overblow it, especially in the media, like what he can do, but at least their guys are always going to the right spots. Like it's like they'll have some slapdick receiver in there I've never even heard of, and he's getting all 14 and he's throttling down and find the soft spot. It's because they teach it. they actually coach these guys up for what they're trying to accomplish.
That's been the frustrating, among I say the frustrating thing. There's been a lot of them, but that's been one of the most frustrating thing on the Urban Meyer front, right? It's like you look at what he is touted as, and it's as this attention to detail guy, and this right, and this right. This CEO just, and so I think for me coming in when he made his coordinator hires, that's when I fell off a little bit, because I was just like, you know what, this is such an opportunity to bring in some people, maybe not even on the coordinator side. Maybe instead of hiring Shoddy, he's not a bad coach, right? But instead of hiring Shoddy, go a little bit outside the box on the passing coordinator side, right? You have Bevel because Urban hasn't run an NFL offense. He hasn't run an NFL team. So I understand the need for those guys, but I was hoping there would be some sort of innovative hires.
I completely agree. It was like Bevel made sense or Shoddy made sense, not Bevel and Shoddy.
Right.
Like
that. I actually got a question for you, Nate. So if it wasn't Bevel was suggested and he was hired off suggestion, it was going to be Scott Linehan. What would the Jaguars offense look like if it was Linehan?
The Cowboys right now.
Yeah.
That's what's funny about it's funny actually what Kellen Moore runs is Scott Linehan's offense. Like that we just don't talk about it because it looks good. It looks good. So no one talks about like when Linehan ran it, everyone hated it, but it looks also really good with really good players. Wow. That's funny. And I actually, Linehan was my dad's offense coordinator in Minnesota. So that version was as aggressive as you get though. That was touchdown to check down, like every single play. When you have Randy Moss running Moss stuff and Kelly Campbell as well, and Dante Culpepper able to throw it 80 yards. Yeah, that's what you do. You lean into that a little bit, but it would be kind of like a little bit, maybe a half degree less than what Kellen Moore is doing. I would say with Kellen Moore's version, what he does really well is use personnel groupings really well, which I think is the Boise State influence in them. But it would look like that. It'd be a mix of, it would be more standard concepts, but it would be a little more split field read stuff. Which I like. The drop back, I think, would have a little uptick on it as far as what type of concepts they run. It would be more 2x2, which is fine, but the 2x2 stuff would be half field read. So it's like single high, you go to this side, two high, you go to this side. Maybe it wouldn't be any RPOs. It would be a lot of some quick game stuff, like as far as spacing, double slants, you would see a lot. Stick a little bit as well. Dak Prescott also prefers that stuff because he's just he's a freaking machine. That's what he likes. And I would say the play action stuff would have been a little bit better too, because Linehan's down the field a little bit more.
Gotcha.
So I think obviously a little bit more vertically threatening than what you see right now.
Which almost seems like it would fit the quarterback a little better too. So that's kind of ironic that he went off suggestion and rumors are they hate each other. So talking about him and the head coach, not him and the quarterback, but right?
Rumors are.
You gotta love football, man. It's the best. There's so many variables.
That it's just, and you know that because you grew up in the middle of all of it. It is.
There's never a simple answer. How about that? That's
never a simple answer. And I tell people and I'm nowhere near as connected to it as you were and as you are, but over the years I've been a little bit connected to the Jaguar side of things, and I always tell people that they'd be astounded at how dysfunctional dysfunctional is a great word, how dysfunctional most organizations are. You know what I mean? Like it's
a whole bunch of ducks on a pond.
Yep.
That's what the NFL is. There's 32 ducks on a pond. That's all it is. You don't see underneath the water how crazy it is.
It's nuts. So another kind of gripe, and this isn't necessarily a Trevor gripe, this is kind of in support of any of his perceived struggles or the offensive struggles mainly, But I wanted to ask you this, since you are watching pretty much every snap of his on tape. Are any receivers actually getting separation?
No, no. The one that got the most separation on Sunday was Tavon Austin, and which is saying something, right?
Yeah,
I mean, and Agnew before that, like Agnew was the best receiver, legitimately. I thought that was a joke at first, and I watched it. I was like, oh no, he's legitimately the best receiver they have, and he's wearing 39. It's
he's a receiver 4, even though he was the best.
But, yes, right. Yeah. I know that's
he's a receiver. He's a receiver 4 who was like a cornerback 5. A year ago. So
slash, he's slash, man. Yeah. No. The receivers now, like Marvin Jones, man. It's just Marvin Jones makes so many mental errors, and that's just shocking to me. Like, I didn't know that was part of his game. Like, I really liked him when he was coming out, when he was with the Bengals and he was a free agent. And him and Sanu were both free agents. I had him ahead of Sanu. And then he went to Detroit. He was a fine, really good number 2. And I thought that's kind of what he'd be with Jaguars. Okay, he's dropped off. He's never won with speed, but he's got good feel. He's a ball winner. But then it's like he busts the interception on Sunday, the bad one in the red zone. Yeah. It wasn't that he thought he got jumped off sides. It was Marvin Jones was covering the tight end. I just tweeted it. Marvin Jones was covering the tight end, and right before the snap of the ball, he realizes that, and so it was an illegal formation. So he all of a sudden, right at the snap of the ball, like right before it, he realized that he was trying to move off the ball. So he's like, he does that. The defensive lineman flinches. That's why everyone thought it was offsides. Yeah. And then he runs the route, and he's late on the route. And Lawrence was buying it, going like, oh, you got press inside leverage against a corner. Yeah, I'm taking that corner route. Yeah. And it was a train wreck, as we all know. It was a play. Yeah. It looked awful. I mean, it was a terrible play.
Happened right in front of us, Nate. Right.
Hey, that was my one play cap that we sat on the field, and the flag came out, and all the linemen were like, offside, and illegal procedure, like illegal formation. And I looked at JB and I was like, let's go back to our seats, dog. This is whack. Like,
everything, Nate, in fairness, everything was going great up until that point when Dilla left the section. So
the black cloud. No, and it is rough. The receivers aren't, they have no team speed, which is ironic because that was a point of emphasis, right? They have no team speed. And on top of that, if you have no speed, you have to be very detailed and win with details and win with perfect spacing and all that. The spacing is horrid on a lot of plays because receivers are short on routes. So why that matters is it'll look like Trevor's late on something, but really he's on time. You can watch it with the footwork. Everything's tied in together. Every route concept, the protection is tied with the quarterback's drop. So it all ties in together. And so it looks clean. Their stuff always looks disjointed because the receivers are running a step too long or a step too short. They feel open. Like Levinsky Shenault, I liked as a kind of a super role player coming out of Colorado. I had a late second, early third round grade on him. He went kind of exactly, he went early second. And the thing is now he's being asked to be a true Z receiver, and he's not. He's a number 4 super role player. And that you get the ball in his hands 5 to 6 times a game, but you do not want him running deep digs. You do not want him running any nuanced routes. You want to keep it really simple for him. Less is more. And he's getting thrown in running like real routes, and it looks like that. Like a lot of times it's like, oh my God, he just has no way. He doesn't have that feel for beat and press. He's kind of a little stiff in that way. And it's not his fault. I mean, it's just that's what's being asked of him. Yeah, it's a chicken and egg thing. It's like, well, it's not his fault. That's not what he should be asked to do. But it's like, who else do they have to do it? So, and I would say Marvin Jones has just been very disappointing to me. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed in him. But that's really it. Like Dan Arnold was like they're looking like their best receiving option, and he has like 2 drops a game. Yeah. Like and
I call him tight end 3, and everyone gets mad. And I'm like, he's not that good. Like,
he's not, but it's just better than what you had.
Yeah.
Man, he might not be good, but for a couple weeks there, he looked like freaking Travis Kelce to us. So
I know. Isn't it funny? You get used to those 2 stars. All of a sudden it's like, you get a 3-star and you're like, wow. Yeah. Like, that's like we got to Wisconsin, and we got a receiver one time. He actually ran a 4.4, and it was like, wow, we got some speed now because all of our other receivers ran 4.6s.
That's hilarious.
It's the Jaguars.
No, with the receivers running their route short and stuff and making things look off, is that something where the receiver coach is coming up short because in Jacksonville, everybody hates Sanjay Law.
Lonjay South.
Then though, I talk to Justice all the time, and Justice is like, the receiver coach doesn't have any impact on the football team, but Justice is Justice too. So I can't always think, you know what I mean? Like what he's saying for word.
Justice is a savant in certain ways, but Justice has Justice takes. So it's exactly. And I love Justo. That's who I did the podcast with yesterday morning. But the receiver coach does have some say in that. I mean, there's details. I mean, covering the tight end, yes, it's on the players. First off, it's on the players. They have to have some attention to detail. Marvin Jones is a vet, and Marvin Jones is playing the bevel offense. Like, he shouldn't be making mistakes like that.
Yeah.
But some of that, when it's always the same position group, it's like, well, one of these guys has got to be doing something right. When it's all four guys are doing something wrong. I've worked with Bernie Parmalee, the running back coach, and I know what Bernie's strengths is. Bernie's actually a good protection coach because he was the running back coach with my dad, and my dad threw him into the fire and really made him work for it and really helped him out. But with Bernie, he learned that stuff, and that's why running back protection is actually a strength of the Jaguars. And it doesn't matter who. Carlos Hyde was in there, and he's doing it fine. Like, his eyes are going to the right spot. That's because somebody's coaching it.
He's got to do something fine, to be fair, but keep going. Sorry.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. But it's a little bit on, I would say it's like one of those where it's about 30% on the coaches and that's really 70% on the players, or their inability, or just their lack of ability, either their lack, I would say 40% like their talent, and then 30% of their attention to detail. But it's if you're not going to be, if you can't win, like, you better be right at least.
And that's been so frustrating for us. And I don't think anybody who's a diehard fan that has any semblance of football knowledge is necessarily, how do I put this? I don't think anybody has any grandiose perceptions of what the skill position players are, right? Especially from a pass catching perspective. But where our frustration comes from is the fact that not only are they not talented, but they don't seem to be well coached or disciplined.
It's the worst of both worlds.
That's what,
and this is what it looks like.
It's what it looks like, and that's what we were sold on, that Urban Meyer was going to be, right? And that's what he is, and that's what he would bring. And in the fact that in a lot of his press conferences, he sounds as downtrodden and as lost as LaVisca is running a traditional route tree. But
that's where pick 25 though. It's like, why are you going with a running back there, man? It's like that was a big warning sign for me. I was like, or warning bell. I was like, oh boy, this might be uglier than I realized. Free agency was the first. Well, the strength coach was the first alert, and then it was,
that feels like 3 years ago.
And then, oh my God, right? No. And then free agency happened. I was like, you said you're studying the league for a year. Why was this?
Don't get me started, bro.
Some of the quotes coming out were a little interesting. And then the pick 25, because I had Rashad Bateman as my receiver too. And Chase, of course, Jamar Chase was very good too, but he was already gone, and Devontae Smith was already gone. But a guy like Rashad Bateman would have been amazing right now. A crafty route runner that actually has a little bit of juice and great hands. It's like
his hands are ridiculous.
That sounds, and he's long he's 6'1", but he's like built like he's 6'4". And it's like, that sounds pretty good right now. Even if, we have Chark. And whatever you want to say about Chark is like, okay, he's your X, but then you have Bateman as a Z, and who can move inside and out. He was great from the slot. So it's like they were just these guys slapping you in the face. Basically, it's like, pick this guy, help him out. Their O-line's decent. Like I think the O-line's like perfectly league average. I think that's how I felt before.
I tell people that all the time. Like
all the time. It's so frustrating when they say they suck.
They look good in the run game. Their run game stuff's great. Like, it really is.
Norwell's one of the best guards in the league. Like, grades out as one of the best. It's crazy.
And the left tackle's fine. Like, they're fine. Like, it's just fine. Like, you can't. It's not like what Justin Fields has gone through or Zach Wilson's gone through. Like, it's
not at all.
Nowhere near that.
Yep.
And that's what makes it frustrating. It's like, okay, so you don't have to go line with that second pick. all right, let's help out our receiver, let's help out our quarterback and give him a guy that he can grow with and a guy that we like. We might not like Chark, he's a fine player, but we might not like him, but we like this guy. And it was like, they decided just not to do that. Okay, you don't like Bateman. Okay, we got Elijah Moore.
Elijah
That's
Moore.
who I
Yeah.
wanted.
Elijah Moore.
I wanted
Dude,
Elijah Moore.
Elijah Moore is a football player. That
Yeah.
guy he was going to be useful no matter who we went to, because he could just play football and do shit. He might never be the top guy, but he's going to do shit for whoever he goes with. Okay, there's another guy right there. I could just go through all these receivers.
Well, and then you turn around,
Rondale Moore.
I was just saying, round two.
That was the other guy I wanted.
Everybody was like, we all liked Elijah Moore.
Yeah.
I think within the fan base,
you're
there
justified.
was within the fan base, there was mixed feelings about Bateman, right? Whatever,
Okay.
right or wrong. Everyone assumed that Urban, because he spoke so highly of Rondale Moore on when he was doing the college football coverage, that people were playing this clip where Urban was on the big noon kickoff, show or whatever with Fox. And it was Ohio State, Purdue or something, but he said, this guy, Rondale Moore, single-handedly beat us my last year at, in school. And it's just glowing about this guy. Had a whole segment where he's breaking down film and tape of this guy. So we're all thinking, okay, they went ETN, like we got a couple picks in round 2. Okay. Like it's a no-brainer. Like people were mocking him at 25 to us just because of that. And then we come away with, Tyson Campbell, Walker Little, and Travis Etienne, and everybody's like,
okay.
Yeah. All right. None of these receivers.
The Simpsons joke. You're going to the fireworks factory and you just never got there. Like you were expecting that. I know. And like the one detriment with Rondale, okay, yeah, he's smaller and he got banged up a bunch. Okay, yeah, that's fine. But I mean, you watch him, that he just got juice, and it's like, he's got game-changing juice.
Yep.
And no matter how you shake it, oh yeah, he's at Purdue, he's in the Big Ten. It was like it popped. No matter how you viewed that guy, I know, and that's what I mean. Elijah Moore would have been great too. Now that I'm looking at it, it's like, I mean, that made a lot of sense too. I mean, it's he would have been perfect for what they needed. He could be a Z for him too. And
I think in hindsight too, once they took ETN, Urban kept talking about how they loved his receiving ability too, and they wanted to move him around and all this stuff. And I'm like, if you love a guy and your theory or your idea is that maybe you're going to put him in the slot more, you're going to move him around. Well, you got Elijah Moore, you got Rondale Moore, you got all these guys, who actually have done it.
It's not theory. It's not theory.
I don't know.
I liked ETN, but for me, I think he ended up my running back 4 because he was so limited in other ways. We're talking about the limitations of the Clemson offense. It was a worse for ETN than it was for Lawrence. He was terrible in pass protection, like actually bad. Not just his eyes, even if his eyes were right, just how his technique was. And it's like, yes, guys can improve by that, but he's a senior. It's like, this isn't some junior coming out who's just finally getting touches now and on the field now. It was like, okay, he's a senior doing this. He's supposed to be a smart guy or like a real worker, and he's not doing it now. That's a little bit of an alarm bell for me. So it was like, okay, so that limited him. It limited the upside that I saw from him. And so like, that's why I even was frustrated with it. I was like, you don't take that guy in the first round. You take him in the second. Those are guys you take in the second. And too many teams take these limited guys that have these real red flags in the first round. And it drives me insane. And it's like, yeah, on top of it's a running back, but I know. How about you take the guy that literally like at Ole Miss was getting targeted and getting the handoff like
all game
20 times a game.
Yeah.
Lane Kiffin knew where his bread was buttered.
Right.
Like, this is our best player. Let's give him the ball every single snap.
It's okay though. No good receivers have come out of Ole Miss in the last 5 or 6 years, so it's fine.
None.
Never.
Zero. We got Laquan Treadwell. What you mean, dog?
Oh yeah,
right.
Our current wide receiver 1, Laquan Treadwell. So okay, while we're talking draft, I do want to hit you before we let you go. We got a couple other questions specifically about Trevor, what he can still improve on, what people should be expecting for the rest of the year, and what we should be looking for year 2. We'll get to that in a second. But while we're talking draft, obviously all of us are already looking at wide receivers, and who do you think would be a fit that they should target? Do you think there's anybody that's a top 5 talent that they should be looking at? And then from there, maybe guys who are late first, early second, give us an idea of your opinion of this wide receiver class.
It's a great class. It really is. And a lot of different flavors, which is fun. Like kind of different types of guys. And a little last year I had a lot more slot guys. Like we talked about the Moores, Elijah and Rondale, and those types of guys. Kadarius Toney. This one has a little more outside types or guys that can go inside and out. And the only guy I'm never one that likes taking a receiver in the top 10 unless it's a freak.
Unless it's Justin
Jones.
Blackman.
It's just the Blackman. Oh, but the one guy that I do right now have a super high grade on. I mean, there's a lot of guys I have high grades on, but the one that at the top right now is Drake London out of USC, and he has a fractured ankle right now. But that's a fractured ankle. It's not an ACL. It's not ligament damage. It's a fractured ankle, which they can come back from. So that's why I'm not too worried about that. But he's Mike Evans. He really is. He is a classic ball winning type, but he actually has speed. He's a basketball player and he looks like it every single snap. But the thing is, he has more polish than I thought he would. His route running he doesn't get wadded up on guys, or I call them magnets to guys where they seem to find contact like Chenault does on a route. Like they just seem to find contact. It's like, no, you're supposed to work away from it. And he's a guy that's like, I think the sky's the limit for him, especially if he just continues to grow his game. The lack of separation, some people were knocking him for. It was more just by design. It was because the quarterbacks couldn't throw it deep and they couldn't get it past 50 yards. So he would beat guys and he'd have to plant his foot because the ball was short and high pointed. It's not a lack of separation. It was just like necessity. But he's the top guy for me right now. And then there's a chunk of guys that like the 2 guys from Ohio State, Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, are both phenomenal, just inside and out types. They work.
Who do you like better? Who do you like better of those 2?
I like Olave slightly better. I know. And Wilson's has the flash plays, but Olave has more play to play stuff. And I liked Wilson. Silky. I mean, he's Calvin Ridley.
Yeah.
That's if you want to like a snapshot, I'm just going to give a comparison so you can paint a brush with him. Actually, another guy I love too, and this guy I wouldn't take until pick 28-ish, or early second if he's still there, but I don't think he will be. Is Jahan Dotson from Penn State. Yeah. He is more of a football player than I realized. Like he has legit juice. Like he's gonna run really well. He's just smaller, and he's about 5'9", $180. Built like kind of how Waddle was built last year. But he has more technique than Waddle does. Gotcha. So Waddle has world-class speed, whatever. He's maybe a tick below that, but he is actually a receiver. And he has great hands. He's a good route runner. He's a really good football player. He's one of those guys you want people to knock him for his size or that he's a senior. You want those advanced stat guys to go, his breakout age. You want people to be negative on him. Trust me, and get him in the second. You guys will be doing backflips. The other guys, Jameson Williams from Bama. He's so much juice.
I'm excited to watch him against Georgia this week. See how he goes.
Yeah, him too. He's pure juice and he's good. Treylon Burks from Arkansas is a freak, but there's something missing with him for me. I have a high grade on him. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that I would love to interview and just see how much he knows ball. There's a lot of times where I feel like he gets tagged on stuff, meaning the coaches go, hey, Trey, you got this route. Hey, you're running a jet sweep. You got this. And then he's just like, okay, that's my job. But he doesn't know like the concept. So he's a guy I would really want to interview. And I might be wrong. It just might be what they ask of him. But so I'm like just a half tick below, but I still have a high grade on him. So these guys are all first round grades. And then going up that, if you're getting more second round guys, there's I love this Khalil Shakir from Boise State. I have a second, third round grade on him, but he is a ball player too. He's an inside and out type. He can return punts. He's pretty good on jet sweep stuff. He's technique. He's got great technique, great route running already. Jalen Cropper from Fresno State, I really like. And then there's a couple guys I need to watch a little bit more of. David Bell. David Bell's more of a ball winner. I actually don't think he'd be with the Jags, not so much because they need juice. They need heat, and Bell is more of a
we're juiceless right now.
You're juiceless.
We're anti-juice.
I know. And so him and then Justin Ross is pretty twitchy from Clemson as well. He would have some chemistry with him. He just has the injury stuff.
Yeah.
And so,
Lots
that's
of
going
it.
to knock him a little bit. I mean, these guys are all first and second round grades. Oh, John Michie, as you know, from Bama. I didn't like him as much as I thought I would, but he's still a second round grade. Like, it's still like,
I don't really like him that much. You can definitely tell he's not as good as he looked when he had the other guys.
yes.
Now
Yeah.
that he's a true number 2, he doesn't really look that good.
He doesn't
he was
create.
he was
Like,
erased for as big as his stat line is. He was erased almost what felt like the whole Auburn game, and he just blew up towards the end of the game, and it ended up
so that's
winning
why
it
everyone
for him.
remembers, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Right, but it literally took the corner to get hurt for him to be able to beat him. So
I
that's
know
tough
I
too.
was low on him I was lower on him the most to start. I had a second round grade to start. Now I feel even better. Like, I was like, okay, I watched 2 more games this past month. I was like, okay, I feel a little bit better. But like, honestly, those are all my first and second. Oh, and then George Pickens from Georgia. I got to see when he's got to get
Coming
healthy
back from
again.
his knee.
Yeah, but he's talented as well.
Beast.
But but I think those are all the guys I have first and
It's
second.
a lot of
round grades
names.
on.
Now that you say it, it makes me feel better. We should just draft
does.
all those guys.
I was gonna say, I think we have 12
there's good tight ends
picks,
too.
so probably 10 or 11 wide receivers for Trevor.
And so you guys are going to take another running back in the second round. So
yeah. So okay, before we get to Trevor,
tight ends too.
I am
Trey
interested.
McBride
Just
from Colorado State is
what's
another
that?
guy
Sorry,
to look at. Trey McBride from Colorado State, the tight end,
Sick,
is a receiving tight end's dream. Like, he can run routes. He's got great hands. So maybe him in the second round as well.
yeah. So I said we were going to get to Trevor next, and we will. We'll close it out with a few maybe rapid fire questions for you on the Trevor side. But I'm curious to say, because one of the topics here, just again, appreciate you being on, dude. I love talking ball with you. This is cool. I want your opinion just with the flow of the conversation. And then when you put it into locally, what's going on, there's been some conversation lately about James Robinson's usage. Or lack thereof, especially to start out the season with a rookie quarterback. And supposedly when you looked at the roster, the offensive line was probably one of the strengths, right? So there's been a lot of talk of that. I've been very critical of that going back to the beginning of the season. I think there's less room for criticism right now because James Robinson's been banged up, right? So obviously he's not gonna get 30 touches a game right now. It wouldn't make sense. But so this conversation has almost devolved now into locally. What is Urban and Trent Baalke and kind of their inner sanctum? People now are starting to say maybe they don't value James Robinson the way that we as a fan base did, because of the ETN pick and because of not really building the offense around him early on. What's your opinion of him as a player?
I love him. I think he's I keep using the compliment football player, and that's what he is. I think a lot of decision makers, and I would critique a lot of maybe exec types I've been around. They emphasize home run speed with running backs a little too much. How many times do you see a guy breaking away on an 80-yard run in the NFL, other than Derrick Henry? It's
against the Jaguars.
Right?
Against the Jaguars.
Yeah, against the Jaguars. But on a Thursday, it has to be Thursday night too. But it's
after a stiff arm.
Yep, and that's it. I think they don't see the singles and doubles. They, like, for whatever reason, hate singles and doubles hitters. And I get it. Home run hitters get by Cadillacs, but singles and doubles, they drive forwards. And it's like, hey, those are nice sturdy cars that can help your offense out so much. But I think James Robinson is like a complete 3-down back, and you have him on an undrafted rookie contract. It's like, that's what you want. Like, that is team builder's dream. We have this guy. This is literally what you want. You don't want to pay running backs. Okay. We have one, and he can legitimately play all 3 downs because he's great pass protection. He has great eyes. He brings it. Also his vision, he's kind of scheme proof as far as the runs you run for him. He has enough juice to get outside. It's just that he doesn't have that. He has a lot of juice from the 0 to 10, but not 10 to 20. And I think that's where whatever the decision makers in Jaguars, probably with Jacksonville, didn't like about him, but it was like, he does everything else so well.
Dude, it's been so wild to us. It's been so wild because we watched
Leonard. You guys. He's supposed to be a great kid. On top of it,
everything about him he checks so many boxes. And I think for us who have been here for the long haul, we watched now Leonard Fournette, friend of the podcast. He actually we did a friend Zoom for the draft in 2020.
COVID draft.
Yeah. And we had a buddy who played a bunch of Call of Duty with him. He ended up coming on and just hanging with us the whole weekend.
Awesome.
For 3 days.
For 3 days, just tuning in. Now, with
That's
that
awesome.
said, and I said the same thing to him when he was on, to a lesser degree. But with that said, James Robinson has twice the vision of what Leonard Fournette has as a running back. And we see that. So where Dilla and I sit, we sit in the end zone. We sit in the north end zone. You've been in that stadium.
Yeah.
So we sit in the north end zone. And you just see, I watched Leonard run into Norwell's rear end. Yeah. So many times when a hole was right here. But James Robinson pressing the hole, like finding, like
tempoing his runs.
Oh my God. He understands so fun to watch.
Yep. It's a lot of running backs get suckered in to reading the first level. Robinson's eyes, he knows how to bait the linebackers for the double teams. Like he actually uses the blockers how they should be used because it's all timing. You got a double team on zone, the guy climbs to the second level. He understands when that happens, and not a lot of backs have that feel. And it's guys just have a feel for it, and that's what he has. It's just tempo. He has that tempo of the runs, and that I agree. His vision is like very good.
Yeah.
And I watched Jonathan Taylor today too, and it's like he's playing outstanding right now, and it's like they have the same level of vision. It's just Jonathan Taylor's a freak, and so it just looks like insane. But it's like they're seeing the same things. Mm-hmm. They know how to pace yourself. And he has footwork and everything. Even like this past game, you could tell he's banged up. It's like he's dragging his leg, like Quasimodo. And it's like, but even like as he's doing that, it's like he's still getting to those 5-6 yard gains. And it's like
it's been
he's
nuts,
hurt.
Man.
Yeah,
it's been nuts. We none of us around here can figure out why
they're emphasizing speed, right?
Yeah. all that speed. We got converted corners and Roseanne Arnold's son playing tight end. I mean, all that speed. We're just, Anyway, well, dude, couple more for you and then we'll let you go. Dilla, I know you had a few on here specifically talking about the future. You want to?
Yeah, no, we can run with it. My biggest thing was with what T-Law has right now, the roster is not going to change for the better for the rest of the year. Where should we see him improve? Like what is possible to improve with the lack of talent that he has surrounding him?
I would say cut bait earlier on some concepts. I think Trevor wants to do everything perfect as far as how he progresses on concepts. I think he needs to take out number 3 on his progression. He just got to keep everything 1 to 2 and then scramble. Use your legs more and lift the team up because there's a lot of concepts. He's trying to do the right thing, which is awesome. But I think it's kind of, I'm talking out both sides of my mouth. It's like you want most quarterbacks, hey, get to 3. It's like he's already shown he can do it. So it's like, okay, I say for him, it's like anytime you get man coverage, just scramble. No one's winning against man anyways. Like anytime you get nice soft coverage and the check down might be wadded up or he's in protection or something like that, scramble and just use your legs. So I would say maybe put more on yourself. I think it might be, if I were coaching him up, that would be maybe the one thing. And he has a little bit, and they're kind of, I think they let him do it a little bit more. I would say that's the number one thing because there's times where it's remarkable actually that he will get to the backside and concepts. I'm like, because his pocket movement's so exceptional that he buys himself the time to do it. But it's like, sometimes I'm like, hey, you don't need to just scramble, just like, hey, just go, but in the long term, that's going to be a good thing. It really is. As guys start winning on routes where guys are capable of doing it.
Nice. Yeah. So I guess really the last question then is, does Trevor Lawrence have the worst supporting cast in the NFL?
Yeah.
At the skill positions anyway.
A skill position, yes. Yeah. Yes. Because I would say overall it might have been Fields because their that line is just garbage. Gotcha. And it just and they don't give him a lot of help. And the receivers, they have some team speed issues too. I gotta think who else. Unless you want to feel pity for Tyrod Taylor a little bit. The Jet, I would say it's the Jets and Jags, but the Jets at least have a couple guys with juice and a couple guys that can win one-on-one.
And they're younger.
I mean, Corey Davis is a hell of a player, and Elijah Moore is a hell of a player. That's already 2 guys that the Jaguars would.
Better. You could bring Nate. You could bring back Keelan Cole, and he'd be wide receiver 1 right now. Here,
he would. He honestly would. He would bring back Rashard Green. Like
shit.
Blast from the past. Oh my goodness. What's your overall outlook for Trevor? I mean, has it changed at all long term?
Nope. I want to tell you guys and everyone listening, he's going to be fine. He is. It's just everything else has got to get better around him. And I mean that, like, yes, you heard me talk about him, how much I adored watching him in college and as a prospect, but it's everything he's showing is exactly what you want to see out of your quarterback. It is. There's the only scary thing is like, you don't want him to lose confidence or anything, but he has a personality that's like, I'm not worried. Like he's his own thing. Like Trevor Lawrence is Trevor Lawrence. I think he has his own self-confidence that I think for him, for a lot of stuff, he's just like, all right, that's the play. All right. He wants to win, but he's just kind of, it brushes off of him, I think, which is a good thing. But honestly, and I know I'm an optimist on it, but a glass half full on it, but no, seriously, it's like, it's justified. Like watching this Falcons game too, there's like a lot of good things. I'm like, oh, he hasn't gotten scared feet at all. He's getting better in the pocket and he's getting better with his eyes. So yeah, keep the faith. Just hope everything else improves though.
if there was an offense out there, or maybe, we'll just stick with that. An offense out there that you could hand pick for him to run, currently in the NFL, what would it be?
Mm-hmm. Man, he is scheme proof, which is nice. But it's funny we talked about it, but really Kellen Moore's offense, because they just hit every type of concept possible, and that's because he can handle it. Like that's why they can do that in Dallas, is because Dak is a machine, and every read is perfect. It really is. It's really fun to watch. That though with Lawrence would be really cool. I would say I actually would have really liked McVay's like offense from 3 years ago. Like this new Stafford offense is a totally different flavor. Some of the empty stuff he does, that he can run the hard NFL concepts without window dressing. It's just like, think of any coach that really does some good window dressing right now. And I'm drawing some blanks on some. The Chiefs offense is so fake. It's like its own. That's why I never ever say like, oh, Andy Reid's offense. It's like, that's its own. You can't teach that. Like, it's just, that's Mahomes and Hill and Kelsey. It's like, that's why if you're trying to hire some guy from that offensive system to teach guys, I'd be like, no, don't do that. That's, they have some good concepts and stuff, but I won't go with that. But it's been very disappointing for some play callers for me this year. Like I was expecting to see some more. Dable leaned too far into the spread revolution. He's too far in, and I want to see, and he got kicked in the teeth a little bit this year, as far as he really was like, I get it. I mean, they look how they were last year. A lot of that was Josh Allen, go do something funny, like go be you and create. So I do like the window dressing he does. He's better than most. I would put that. I'm being harsh right now, but he is a good coach. Don't get me wrong, but his innovations have led to limitations in a way. It's that he leaned too far into the spread, not having the tight end, going 5 wides every snap, empty all the snap, quarterback run game. And that's fun. It's unique. It's creative, but it's almost like I like him as like I wish he was like the quarterback coach as opposed to coordinator. Because I think they're missing some soundness with their stuff. And you can tell a lot of times he struggles to adjust. And when starting week 1, especially the Steelers game, and everyone just has copied that and just run soft coverages against them. So I'm not like down, like super down on him, but I was never as high as other people were to start. Yeah. And same with Greg Roman. Don't even get me started on him. I'm trying to Leftwich. Oh shit. Get an Arians offense for Trevor Lawrence. Cause he can push the ball. And actually, that an Arians type offense, which is old school. Hey, it's freaking down the throat. Lawrence can operate in that type of system. He's one of 5 guys that could probably do it in the NFL. Like, honestly, that would actually be that's my final answer is Leftwich. There we go.
So Urban Meyer needs to hire Leftwich as quarterback coach going into next year.
That's how it goes. All right. What if Leftwich became the Jaguars coach? How full circle will that be?
There's legit people. If you go on Jaguars Twitter right now, there's people like opining for that.
Banging the drum.
Which is so
well, I never thought you'd be a coach. I know Byron. I never thought in a million years he'd be a coach. And guys like playing for him. Like they do.
Guys like playing for him. The reviews are, even before he got with Brady, the reviews were good. But from a Jacksonville perspective, it's so galaxy brain because half of the local yokels here couldn't stand Byron. Right.
I know.
And so now
right?
to
Couldn't
have
wait to
people
run him
like
out of town.
clamoring to have him maybe come back and
Isn't
be
it
the coach.
funny?
It's like,
Oh,
boom.
you should say a couple years ago, the Vikings fans were trying to get my dad back to be the O-line coach. And it's just hilarious. It's like 5 years ago, you guys hated this guy. And now they hey, can you be our O-line coach now? It's like, yeah, I know. But it's funny how that not for long. Hey, that's NFL. That's what it stands for.
It
And
is.
that's what it is.
Well, hey, you were smart, bro. You got out of the coaching and the scouting ranks, and now you just get to talk about it and talk ball, and nobody can fire you, or at least they're not
Great.
lining up. Yeah,
It's
honeymoons,
awesome.
bro. I love
These
it.
takes don't get me fired, man.
That's it. That's perfect. That's perfect.
Great.
Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on, bro.
Absolutely.
I think we'd love to have you on again sometime in the future, but especially when we have guests like you on who do this stuff for a living, man, we don't take it for granted. We know your time is, you could be doing a lot of other things. So we really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me on. This was absolutely a blast. I mean that. And I'm really glad it came on. So thanks for having me.
Killer.
Thanks, dude.
Awesome. Yeah, of course.